Well, good morning, good morning. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here.
I
Thank
thought
you,
you
Charlie.
would be mocked.
Thank you,
That's
Charlie,
what
for
animate
tape.
people.
Thanks, Charlie, for coming to tape. Because
Yes.
this that makes a big difference to be able to get the information out to the wider audience at home. But we're very lucky to be able to have Margot Burke with us, who's an elder attorney from Newburyport. And this has been Elder Abuse Awareness. Well, we had Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Monday.
Right.
And as in connection with that, we're keenly aware that at this time in society, people are often very, very at risk for financial exploitation from a variety of different sources. And so in connection with our concern for elder abuse awareness and Margot's expertise in elder law, she's agreed to come out and talk to us about financial exploitation and have some tips and strategies for avoiding some of what we were just discussing, those pitfalls that are unfortunately out there.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Margot.
it's not a sexy subject,
Yes,
so.
it's important. It's important.
But the very fact that they have World Elder Abuse Awareness Day means that it's obviously not something that's particular to the United States. This is a worldwide problem, and most Western countries are becoming older countries. The birth rate is not keeping up with the aging rate. Emerging countries still have a higher birth rate, and people don't live as long because the standard of living isn't as good. The downside maybe of better nutrition, better health care, better living conditions could be living longer, but not necessarily in such a way that you're always able to manage your own affairs or defend yourself. So elder abuse takes a lot of different forms. You can have physical elder abuse, and unfortunately that does happen. People who, for whatever reasons of their own, have frustrations or anger, just like they take it out on defenseless children, they can take out their anger and aggravation on defenseless older people. This happens in homes where people have been isolated from friends and perhaps other family, or they're all alone and somebody's been hired to stay with them and they're an abusive type of person. So there are required reporters for this sort of thing, just like there is for financial abuse. And it's the job of these people to bring to the attention of the authorities whenever they notice maybe bruises or burns, or if somebody cringes if you lift your arm or something like that. If they suspect that you're being abused physically, they have to report this to the authorities. Even a neighbor, if nosy neighbors sometimes are very beneficial, because if you suspect that somebody's being physically abused or verbally abused, you hear like a husband yelling at a wife or a child yelling at their parent. Verbal and emotional abuse is abuse as well. And you're not really sure, but you feel like there's an obligation to maybe bring this to somebody's attention. You can always call Elder Protective Services. There's something in the handout that I gave you. The one closest to us is in Lawrence with Elder Services of the Merrimack Valley. You can call Elder Protective Services. They will take the information. You will remain anonymous. They will never give out your information, nor will they come back and tell you what they found. They'll just tell you that they investigated. And they will take the time to contact the elder or the person that's being suspected of abuse, and they will conduct their investigation and come to conclusions whether, it is in fact elder abuse, or perhaps it was some actions were misunderstood and that sort of thing. Sometimes people will do that out of spite. They'll be pissed off at somebody and they'll want to cause them trouble, but that's not what it's for. It's there for people who might be in the process of being harmed and to alert somebody so that somebody can look into it. And maybe they're not actually being harmed at that point, but if the person who might have a tendency in that direction has somebody start to question them, maybe it will prevent something that might have happened. Now, another kind of abuse that we don't really think about is self-abuse. Self-abuse. That's neglecting yourself.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And that's more prevalent than people would think. Now, as competent adults, we're entitled to make poor decisions for ourselves. But when some of those decisions rise to the level of real potential physical harm, like you're not eating, you're not bathing, you're hoarding, you're not taking your medication, you're not dressing yourself properly in accordance with the temperature. Again, this would be a case where Elder Protective Services would be called in to investigate. If they found that this person was just a little bit of a kook and knew that it was snowing outside and chose to wear shorts because that's what he did when he was, he's always done that, that may be okay, but if it's putting his life in jeopardy, then Elder Protective Services will probably intervene.
Then you call that maybe extenuating the circumstances?
Well, I suppose.
It is different, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, but
I mean, dressing not for the weather, like shorts in the winter and.
yeah, well, I mean, teenage boys go out in shorts in the winter time, right? But
Yeah, but my
They said they were
grandson does it, it's okay.
but yeah,
You mentioned hoarding, because that, you see a lot on TV on various problems. Is that a mental issue, or can they be,
that's a mental illness. Hoarding is a
can
mental
someone
illness.
resolve it or solve it, or seeing a psychiatrist or something like that?
It can be. I mean, I'm not a therapist,
Yeah.
but hoarding
When you
is a mental
refer
illness.
to young man,
Well, people that, hoard excessively, so you can't even get into the room or into their house.
oh,
They-
I've seen it. Oh,
Mountains of
it
stuff.
does appear to be
I-
a sickness.
Oh, yeah.
I had have a client who is now living in assisted living, but
Yeah.
he was on the floor in one of his rooms for a couple of days before somebody found him, and a pile of what he had been hoarding. He had slipped, reached out to it, it gave way, he fell. Fortunately, he had a child who, was able to intervene and get him to,
Does this
assisted
occur
living.
more with elderly, or could it occur to middle-aged people?
I
or-
think
Yes.
I don't think that it's a peculiar unto elderly people.
Yeah,
But if you're a shut-in,
yeah.
you can't get out very easily, you don't drive anymore, especially in rural areas,
Yeah.
Although it does happen in urban areas too. There was this story in New York about these brothers. Cohen brothers, was it? Yeah, I mean, they had hoarded newspapers and they died. They were
Collier Brothers.
Collier, that's what it
Yes,
is.
and had mazes through the house.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they literally suffocated because I think a pile of these newspapers fell on them.
Yeah, one brother trying to reach the other.
Yeah.
The other brother was dying in bed, and the other brother trying to reach him literally died in one of his tunnels.
Oh, my God.
But that was a case where he had, again, when you talk about when it presents as mental illness, and he was the other brother, the younger brother, probably began to present symptoms in his 20s and then developed this very reclusive life. But sometimes, an elder or an individual who's living with a dementia or a memory disorder of some sort, the hoarding can come along with that.
Right, and
But
that's very, very often.
It's a difficult behavior. I mean, and it can be addressed with medication and with behavior therapy, but and group support. And but fortunately, I was going to say, we have a wonderful hoarding protection unit through our protective services and elder services.
Yeah.
because it is, I mean, you know, certainly as Margot was explaining, you know, it can put people really in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And there's different ways that people do court. I mean, it's now that you can buy accessibly online or, you know, QPC.
We, colleague and I are trustees of trust that this woman who has, well, she's like the poster child for elder abuse, this woman. I mean, she was a hoarder, but a very neat hoarder.
Yeah.
Because my colleague and I, as trustees, were tasked with cleaning out her apartment after she died, and I'll tell you the backstory in a minute. But this woman saved plastic bags.
Oh, yeah.
But she folded them all up neatly, and they were put in other plastic bags. I've never seen so much stuff in my life. She had a 2-bedroom apartment, and my friend says, okay, by the way, I named you as co-trustee of this trust. I said, oh, thanks very much. Let's go over. We have to clean out a few things before we can put this apartment on the market. We couldn't open the doors to the bedrooms. There was stuff. I mean, incredible amounts of stuff. Every time you opened a cupboard, there was more stuff. She hoarded,
But she was neat.
she was neat. Yeah, but I mean, there was stuff all over the place, but everything in the drawers was neatly packed. It wasn't like she had it just all over the place. But we opened pantry doors in the kitchen, and there were like 14 boxes of cereal, all expired. You know, 20 things of dishwashing liquid. It was very, very interesting. But this poor woman, as I said, she was like the poster child of elder abuse. She and her husband had been married for quite a long time, 40 some odd years. He started to suffer from dementia. One night, he totally lost knowledge of who his wife was, took a knife and practically stabbed her to death. I mean, repeatedly stabbed her. I mean, he was obviously not in his right mind, but nevertheless, this woman was very, very badly injured. He went to a place that could take care of him, and she went to the hospital. So a cousin said, that's okay, I'll take care of your affairs while you're in the hospital, recuperate. This cousin then proceeded to steal her identity. Took out credit cards in her name, just abused her financially, something awful. So the poor woman, when she recovered from the stab wounds, came home to dunning notices from credit card companies because she hadn't been paying the bills. She had never taken out these credit cards. So the last couple of years of her life, she then developed cancer, and that's what eventually she died from, but was spent trying to regain her identity. And it is not easy. It is not an easy thing to do. And even in administering her estate, we're dealing with one credit card company that totally refuses to recognize that she was exploited. And so, I mean, it can continue on, you know, after you die. Very nice lady, you know, but really terribly victimized, you know, by one person who really didn't know what he was doing and by another person who did, which, you know, brings up the fact that more often than not, you're abused by somebody you know. Now, there's also the scam artists. And I've got notes because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. Excuse me. So we talked about physical abuse and emotional abuse. There's also sexual abuse, which unfortunately does happen to older people. We're fortunate in this area that we have good nursing homes, even though they may not all be perfect, and they may be understaffed, and sometimes there are issues about, you know, getting care in a timely manner. But if you live in a large urban area like Boston or New York City, where there's, you know, a larger population of people who don't have relatives and don't have people to advocate for them, unfortunately, that's where you're probably more likely to suffer from sexual or physical abuse from somebody who works in one of those facilities or in assisted living. So in that respect, as I said, we're more fortunate. At this juncture, I want to remind you that there's a position called the ombudsman.
What?
Ombudsman, it's a Swedish term, which means representative of the
Oh, well, thank you.
representative of the people. And there are ombudsmen that are assigned to each nursing home. And I did that for a while when I first started my practice, and I was associated with Elder Services in Lawrence. I became a state certified ombudsman. They're all volunteer positions, and their job is to make sure that the people in the nursing home get the care that they are entitled to and that they need. And if there are any issues, it's a good first place to start, because they can be an intermediary between the person in the nursing home and the administration. They can keep it confidential and not say who was reporting something if, you know, maybe somebody saw that somebody else was being abused or somebody else wasn't getting care. But they can also, you know, represent somebody in terms of negotiating with the administration. And if they think it's really egregious what's going on, they are empowered to take it further. So the ombudsman's name and contact information has to be prominently displayed. And there are ombudsmen for assisted living facilities, but not to the extent that there are for nursing homes. So it's important to know what avenues are available, you know, to be able to register a complaint.
Is it mostly the nursing homes that are run by the state or the city or even private?
There are, most nursing homes, I don't know of any nursing homes that are run by the state. There are some state mental hospitals, but nursing homes are either nonprofit or run by, corporations that are for-profit. And more certain corporations own nursing homes.
Because
You
you
know,
hear
all
about
over the
people that are on Medicare and all of a sudden they need a nursing home, they might be sent somewhere that's covered by Medicare.
No, first of all, we're talking
Is that
about
different?
Medicaid, not Medicare.
Medicaid.
So let me digress from elder
Yes.
abuse for a minute
Okay, all right.
and talk about the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. Why they couldn't have called them something a little bit different from one another, but it's actually medical assistance. So Medicare is health insurance, just like Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's health insurance that we are entitled to once we reach the age of 65 and have worked 40 quarters during our lifetimes. And we pay into it in a tax, a Medicare tax, while we're working. Once we have Medicare, we will always have Medicare. We don't have to qualify for it, other than what I just said. There are no means tests for Medicare. Medicaid, aid for medical care, is the means-tested welfare program that the majority of people who are in nursing homes are covered by Medicaid. Because even here, a monthly nursing home bill could run $10,000 to $12,000 a month. I know, it's really, and what you paying, Medicare will still cover your medical care, even in a nursing home. So if you need some kind of skilled care, or you have a Medicare Part D prescription plan that provides your prescription medications, they'll still provide that in a nursing home. But you have to qualify for Medicaid, which means you can't have more than $2,000 in your own name, and you can't have given away assets within a 5-year period. And that's the synopsis version of Medicaid qualifications. Now, just because you're on Medicaid, the law makes no distinction in the type of care you are to receive. And you have a right to try and get a bed in a geographically convenient location from either where you live or where your family is, if there's a bed available. The time that people are sent further away would be if there's no bed available in their immediate area, or they need really specialized care, like they need to be on a ventilator. Those are very few places can accommodate chronically ill people on ventilators. So, or if you have psychological issues that are brought on from things like alcohol-induced dementia, which happens, and you can't, because I have a client who's actually in the middle of this kind of a situation. He was an alcoholic. He developed dementia because of the drinking, possibly other things. I'm not making a medical diagnosis, but the end result was that his behavior was so aggressive that the level of medication that he would have to be on, the nursing homes, the local nursing homes, first of all, he's been in about 4 or 5 of them, but they didn't feel comfortable medicating him to that extent. So he had to be moved to a particular facility that had the mandate to medicate to this level, because you can't restrain somebody in a nursing home, right? You can't tie them down. You can't put a belt around them in a wheelchair. Bed railings are considered restraints. So when my dad was in the nursing home, he had to request every night that the bed rails be put up because he felt more comfortable because he could hold on to them. But those are considered a restraint. And medication can be a chemical restraint. And if you medicate too much, that rises to the level of, now, do nursing homes do this? Yeah. Are they supposed to? No. But that's a subject for another, another day. But that's something also to be aware of if you have, sometimes my dad was in a nursing home in the 90s. He died in 2000. And I think, oh my gosh, if I had just known then all the things that I have learned over the last, since then, the last 13 years since then. Oh my gosh. Anyway, seems like yesterday, it really does. But that's another area where you have to know to advocate for a relative, friend, or whoever who's in a setting like that. If you think that they're being overly medicated, you have an obligation to them to make sure that that's not happening. So that's another kind of restraint or abuse over medication. Neglect. If you neglect somebody that you are responsible for, that you've taken the responsibility for, whether it's in a nursing home or assisted living or at home, or the self-neglect that we talked about. That's where, self-abuse would come in as self-neglect. Or abandonment, where you've taken on the, some role of taking care of somebody and then you just walk away from them and you leave them alone to fend for themselves and they're not capable. So those are the main, areas other than financial abuse. And financial abuse is very prevalent. I read an article, there's a great blog, an article in the New York Times called The New Old Age. Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, I've seen some of this.
Yeah. There was an article not too long ago that I took a little exception to on the one hand because she did refer to attorneys who help people with Veterans Administration applications for assistance as ambulance chasers. So I took a little exception to that. But she did point out that, so let me back up a little bit. If you are a veteran, you can get some benefits, some care benefits, home care or assisted living cash benefits to help you pay for your care. You have to have served 3 months in any of the branches of the armed services. 1 day of that 3 months has to be during a time of war. You don't have to be fighting, you don't have to be shooting anybody or in a theater of war. You just have to have been in service during that, for one day during that period. And you have to have gotten something other than a dishonorable discharge. There's honorable discharge, and then there's a discharge for like medical reasons or, you know, other reasons. So then you're entitled to a pension. And then this pension is there really for low-income veterans. But it's, there's an augmented portion of that pension that's there to help veterans pay for care, should they need the aid and attendance of a third person for their health and safety. So if you go to an assisted living, that's proof that you need the aid and attendance of somebody else in order for you to be safe. If you're at home, you have to be homebound, which doesn't mean you don't go out, it just means you need help to go out. And you need to show the need. So right now, there are ways of qualifying for this program by transferring some of your assets without penalty. That's going to change soon. They're going to impose a penalty for transferring assets, just like they do for Medicaid, but they haven't gotten around to it yet. One of the ways you can convert assets without transferring them is to purchase an annuity. An annuity is an insurance product where a single premium annuity, you give somebody $100,000, they start to pay you income the next month. Annuities can be a good thing or not, depending on what your circumstances are. But there are annuity salesmen out there who prey on older people. That may not be the best way for you to go, but they have glommed on to this benefit because you don't have to, first of all, nobody can charge you for doing this application. So how do they make money? You know, if you see a lot of advertisements for, you know, veterans benefits, they can't charge you, so how are they going to make any money if it's not a veteran services organization or, you know, somebody like that? They're going to do it if they're a financial person, generally by selling them an annuity. And that's something you really do have to be on the lookout for, because there are annuity salesmen. I had a client who, at like 82 or something, was sold a deferred annuity. That annuity didn't mature for 10 years. And there were huge penalties if he accessed it sooner. I mean, people are gullible, and people are raised, especially people in their 70s and older, have been raised to save, put away for the rainy day. You know, it's a little hard to think if you're in your 80s that maybe the rainy day is, it might be drizzling now, but you know, it's going to pour in about 5 years, you know. So people take advantage of people.
Elderly are more susceptible to that because I think they're over-trusting oftentimes.
It's very interesting. In researching this issue, I came across, where is it? I came across an article about a study that was done, brain scans of older people, and studies of how they responded to photographs of different expressions, you know, how they, you know, smiling or frowning. Older people were less able to pick out the more nefarious looking types than younger people. So they do think that there is a change in the brain structure that could make older people more vulnerable to scams. And they can be a lot more trusting.
Let me ask one thing about scams. You find out after reading up on some of these that the vast majority take place in maybe some of the African countries, Nairobi or somewhere else out of this area. The reason why they're not picked up, I assume that the government can't get in there to interject or oust them in some way.
You don't have to go to Nairobi.
2 days ago, I got something I think they were from Nairobi, and they indicated that I had won a vast sum of money again, and I had mentioned this earlier, they're looking for your, all we want to do is release the money to you, and it's from the FBI or something. They'll use well-reputable names from the government here, and it's addressed to the Washington, D.C., and the Department of this and
Urgent,
that.
you know, important. This is, and these are in your
Oh,
handouts, these are scams through the mail that I've collected
Oh, good.
from clients. And the one I really want to point out is the one from Property Transfer Services.
What is it? I'm beginning to think I need a hearing aid. Yeah.
Property Transfer Services, it's in there, but it's called a deed processing notice.
It's
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
And for $83, they will give you a property profile.
Yeah.
That means a copy of your deed and whoever owned your property before that. All you have to do is go
Deed
online.
search, yeah, you go down to the registry of deeds.
You can go down to the registry of deeds, or you just go online if you have a computer.
Yeah.
You go to the Salem South Registry of Deeds, you search your deeds, but just think, if they mail this to everybody, 65 and over, and half of them send them $83,
Exactly.
That's unfortunate.
you know?
What was that?
Essex
last
County
name?
Public Information, purchase transfer date, sale amount, this stuff is
Something on
public
the right
record.
side.
Yeah.
Everything is this, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, this one is circulating
Yeah,
a
different
lot
speed.
now.
That's the one that came over the computer.
Yeah, you won
Yeah.
$1 million, you won $200.
Yeah.
So,
$1,800,000.
these, I made a copy of all of these, just to give you
Yeah, good.
examples of what's out there. And you know what? They'll come up with more of them, you know. But if anybody asks you for any personal information,
Get it, yeah.
absolutely do not give them anything. You know, it's just,
Why can't the government at that point, seeing something like that, you give it to your attorney general at the state level, and he ships it off to Washington, and you notify these people in wherever
you
country
know what
they're
they
from.
do? They fold up shop and they appear as something
It
else.
goes,
No, I,
And you
relocate.
don't even know if that's coming from Nairobi,
Yeah,
do you?
no,
Where do you, it could be coming from
Some-
next door.
that's right.
some of them say Nairobi.
No, my
Well, they
question-
say it, but does
Yeah.
that mean that's true?
That's correct.
You know, suppose if these people called you and they simply, you stupidly give them the name of your bank,
Oh.
they can take your name and call that bank and say, I've misplaced my information. And will the bank actually give them what they're requesting?
You
Or
know,
they
you
give
would
them a
hope
number?
not.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Well,
Some
I would
bank
say-
might be in on it.
you're less likely to have the bank give out your information if it's a local bank.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, they're gonna call
No,
headquarters.
no. You know, like you have the Provident Bank,
Yes.
or you have the, you know,
Savings.
Newburyport
Bank North.
Savings. Not Bank North.
Good.
Bank North is a national bank. It's actually an international bank.
Yeah.
Bank of America is an international bank.
Yeah. George
I have
says-
had one of those banks, I won't name which one, do some things that a local bank would never have done.
Wow.
Also because the local banks tend to keep their tellers, their local people who live locally and work locally. They've known people, I mean, I banked at the
For
same
years.
bank
Oh, yeah.
since I opened my practice 11 years ago. I walk in the bank, they know me by name. They know their clients by name. And they are sometimes the absolute first line of defense to financial scams because they can see what's going on in your account and they've known you. And they know, what your habits are. So they may be, and people say, well, what about privacy and that sort of thing? If they see something like that, they bring it to the attention of their supervisor, who then takes it up the line, and somebody, I mean, I had a
I
client.
just experienced that with the Georgetown, my Georgetown bank, and I felt very safe that they picked up on it. And when I go in the bank, everybody says, "Hi, June Bell, how are you?"
It's,
I feel safe.
it's really nice. I mean, I have to
It
say, I'm from
certainly
New York
is.
City,
Makes your day.
and I love New York, but New York is a big place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're in a cocoon out here in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You
I'm a
know,
small
not
town
that there
girl.
aren't bad people out here, and not that bad things don't happen, but we're fortunate that there's more availability of, you know, that kind of stuff, of you know, bank tellers who know you and can feel comfortable to say,
Yeah, right, yeah.
"Are you feeling okay?" Or, "How's your daughter? Is she coming up to visit?" You know, because they know about your family, they know, you know, they
They
followed
even
you
know
over
my
the years.
grandson. Yeah,
So,
it's important.
so that, in that respect, you know, it's good, but it's very important to be very vigilant. And I have, as I said, I want to make sure that I have all of the, give you all the information, and I can only, you know, there's only so much filing space up here anymore. You know,
You're doing great.
something else comes in, something else goes, you know, gets so remotely filed that I can't, you know.
That's
I-
life.
So there's something in your packet about Elder Protective Services and how to contact them. Then here are some thoughts about preventing identity theft. Make sure you're not missing mail. You know,
Honey?
here it's so different. You know,
Yeah.
people just, you know, mailboxes are right on the street.
Yeah, yeah. you get it.
Again, the frequency of something going wrong around here is far less than in, you know, more populated areas. But it's still, it's important to know what these signs are. Make sure that you opt out of your financial institution sharing any information. There are also, for cell phones and for your home phone, there's the do not call
God
register
bless you.
that you should register your phone. Does that mean you'll never get a call? No, but it certainly will cut down on them, and you know, can help protect you. This article said to shred everything that you throw out with a cross shredder, one that not only shreds up and down but sideways also. I don't know if anybody saw the, you know, Zero Dark 30 movie, but they had been they were shredding a lot of documents when they were getting out of the offices, and people, you know, from Iran took them and they pasted them all together. That's not, I mean, people do that. So, you know, make sure that you totally destroy anything that has Social Security or account numbers on it. Make sure you order copies of your credit report. You can get a free credit report from each one of the reporting agencies a year. You don't have to pay for it, you just request it. That's good because even honest credit card companies could make a mistake. My name used to be Margot Reed. I have a son, Mark Reed. MR, right? We have different middle names, we're different sex, but they confused us. You know?
Oh, wow.
On a credit report that I got, I found that they had my son, who kind of defaulted on a student loan, you know, for a while. He was being reported on my credit report. So it's a good thing, you know, make sure that you keep an eye on that. Letting waiters or sales clerks disappear with your credit card. I was looking through my one credit card statement one day and found that I had been buying airplane tickets in the Philippines.
Nice. Did you go there?
Yeah, I've been there, but many, many years ago, and I certainly wasn't buying any airline tickets there. So I was able to put a stop to that. don't carry your social security number or any sensitive ID, you know, that might, you might lose. Oh, this is always a good idea. Photocopy what's in your wallet, so that if it is stolen or lost, you know exactly what was there, who to call, and if you travel, make 2 photocopies of your passport. Leave one at home and put one in your suitcase. Number one, when they open it up to investigate it, if the TSA chooses your suitcase, that's helpful to them. They see, you know, who you are. But I was in Paris, about 5 years ago, and we'd gotten in early in the morning after a long travel night, and we were taking the metro to the hotel, and I was very tired, and somebody saw me use my credit card to get the metro tickets, put my wallet in my backpack. Next thing I know, my backpack is open, I've been pickpocketed, my passport, everything gone. I had a photocopy of my passport in my suitcase. I took it to the American consulate the next day, and within 24 hours, I had a new passport.
And you were covered. Wow.
Just having that photocopy was very helpful. So I think that's a good idea. They say when you order checks, only have your initials instead of your first name put on. If you work, put your work number rather than your home number. If you're if you're paying a bill, don't put the entire account number in the memo section. Just put the last 4 digits. Let me see. If you have a P.O. box, use a P.O. box instead of an address. Keep a record if something does happen of the conversation that you had regarding the unauthorized use of your information. Close all accounts that have been tampered with or opened fraudulently. Use different PINs and passwords. That's such a pain. I can't remember all those things, you know. It's just, you know, you take your chances with the PINs and passwords, you know, because if I use too many of them, I can't. You know, file a police report if something's been stolen, and make sure that you report everything, you know, to the credit card company. And there's also a phone number that you can. I didn't copy this, but you can. I'll give you this information. I'll make a copy so you can post it someplace. File a complaint with the FTC ID theft. There's a number, and also there's a number to call to see if anybody's been passing bad checks.
I have a question. If you do request that you have just your initials on your check, are you meaning just your first names and not your last name?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But if you sign the check, if
Well,
you're
then-
writing a check, you have to put your full name when you sign
Well,
it.
it depends on how you sign it. You know, some people just sign with their initials. When they open the account, they open it that way. But people don't, what they're saying is people might not know. Do you use your full name? Do you just sign with initials? You know, take it for what it's worth. I don't think anybody in any bank anywhere in the world takes out the signature cards that we signed when we opened up an account and compares them. I mean, maybe in the old days they did that if they didn't know the person cashing the check. I sincerely doubt, unless some real red flags are going up, that happens that frequently anymore.
Yeah, but things are changing all the time, too.
That is true. That is
I
very true.
ordered some beauty products, skincare products from Cynthia Crawford. Know what they did? They sent me a bill for hair care products. Charged it to my MasterCard. I never got a product. I never asked or ordered.
Well,
So you know what I did? I canceled my MasterCard.
very good.
I'm not putting up with that nonsense. I called them and told them what they did. They did nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
So that won't happen again.
my belief is that locks are to keep out honest people. That if I'm trying to go to somebody's house and they're not home and their door's locked, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to leave.
Darn right.
If I've got some nefarious purpose, I'll find a way in. It's, it's how much can you be aware of? How many roadblocks can you put up so that you can make it harder? You're going to it's just like insurance, right? You file an insurance claim, they deny it. A percentage of people are going to go away. They're not going to pursue it. So the insurance company makes out on those people. Then there's a certain amount of people who are going to pursue it. Maybe they'll pursue it through the next step or the next step. And some people will see it all the way through to the end.
Good.
At each level, the insurance company might win something. It's the same thing with people who are trying to be dishonest. Excuse me. Some dishonest people are mildly dishonest. They'll, if the door's open, they'll walk in. If the door's locked, maybe they'll look and see, maybe they'll break the glass, but it all depends on how intent they are to defraud you.
I want to get back to one thing on the scams, and I don't mean to be throwing eggs here at the legal profession, but there's a few folks, I'm sure, out there, whether you're trying to push the mesophilia problem or other drugs or whatever that are no longer in use, or you may have been injured by them or sickened by them. But the name, I'm not going to say the names, we see them on TV all the time, and if you read the fine print, it's up for 3 seconds. They take the order, they've got their phone number, and then they ship it off to Texas or Wyoming or somewhere else to another firm or someone else in the area. And I'm sure they get their slice of their commission out of it. But it seems like to me, it's almost like a scam. You're trying to take advantage of people.
They're not
Not
doing something for
necessarily.
nothing.
No.
No, because those are generally class action suits.
Yeah.
And a lot of attorneys can be involved in a class action suit. The tobacco industry was the subject of huge class action suits.
If someone else gives you the name, do they get a commission or something? Hey, I've got a name.
They get something from
Everybody gets a cut.
but they have to get money.
Yeah.
And when you file a personal injury lawsuit, you don't collect anything until you win it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, there's probably a kickback, but they're not defrauding you. They are putting you in touch with a law firm that's going to interview you and handle your case.
Yeah.
If they ask you for money up front,
Then it's different.
then it's up to you to determine, what is this for? Why are you asking? If it's a small amount to cover expenses, maybe that might, do something. But usually a personal injury firm knows whether you have a good case or not. And it doesn't behoove them to take your case if they're not going to make money off of it. Because most personal injury lawyers front the money.
Okay.
That's why they get big payoffs. You've heard of Schlickman, the guy from Woburn, actually it was from Newburyport originally, I found out. He was the one that brought the class action suit and lost for the people in Woburn with the contaminated water. They made a movie out of it, the name of which escapes me right
Trace
now.
chemicals, was that?
Yeah, I think it was. But he went bankrupt because he put up so much of his own money and lost the case. So it may look like a scam, but as long as they put you in touch with a personal injury firm that makes you a part of the class action suit, then you are getting something, especially if you don't have to put up any money.
Yeah.
What they're doing is casting the net as wide as
That's
they
right.
can, because the more people they get under their tent, the better, their case. But
Some people constantly, you see the same advertisement, the same guys keep showing up all the time.
well, there are these big,
Barry Feinstein.
they've made a
stuff like
career
that.
out of doing
It's
that.
nationally.
Yeah,
He's on TV.
yeah. But it's funny, being on TV or on the radio either makes people suspect you
Yeah.
or think that everything you say is golden.
One extreme or the other, right?
Right. and I was gonna say something, but it absolutely flew out of my head. That's all right, it'll either come back or not. So, do you feel like you got what you came for this morning?